By midwinter, the chickens have not been laying eggs for weeks, many of the hunting seasons have closed, and it's still too cold to start tapping trees for sap. I got desperate to add something meaningful to the tracking sheet. Besides small game, trapping can still be well underway in the second half of January. A few years ago, Betsy, my hunting mentor, showed me how to set traps for raccoons on the farm. I had read that raccoons were good to eat, but what I found out is that braised raccoon meat is almost indistinguishable from beef, and the fat, which they can be loaded with, renders down into a high quality cooking oil. I had not trapped any since then, and asked a neighbor if I could set a couple dog-proof traps on the culvert under the road near his house. 2 days later, I had a raccoon to deal with. Most wild game is lean. Waterfowl can provide a good bit of fat, but it's not something I've spent a lot of time with. A bear provides many pounds of fat that can be rendered down, but getting one is unreliable. Raccoons, though? Raccoons are plentiful, can carry a ridiculous amount of fat for their size, and are relatively easy for an inexperienced person to trap. I like the meat, but a reliable source of fat for cooking is truly what I'm after. The fat also accounts for more calories by weight than the meat. Unfortunately, the raccoon I trapped was not fat. It was a female, and we're well into winter, both things I've been told make it less likely I'd be able to harvest the fat I'm after. Still, I used the legs to make some barbacoa, and then assembled tacos with the meat and blended sauce, corn tortillas, onions, lime, cilantro, queso fresco, avocado sauce, and hot sauce. Then came a few cold, windy days sitting on 10 inches of ice with friends. We were after yellow perch and walleye, fishing in the only spot we had found to be reliable over the last 5 years. This trip turned out to be our most successful yet. I kept and filleted 8 perch, taking guesses from the others on how many calories they'd add to the sheet. But here's the thing with freshwater fishing. Many fish aren't large, and perch are on the smaller end of worthwhile to keep. The 8 perch that ended up on my cutting board that I spent around 14 hours on the ice for amounted to 500 calories of lean protein, a quarter of one day's calories. A saving grace came from 4 of the perch being females with roe sacks, fattier than the meat, which contributed 600 calories to my sheet, more than the fillets from all 8 fish together. There was one person posting in one of the groups for 3 days in a row his 10 perch that he caught in 2 to 4 hours each. At least at that rate, I wouldn't have burned slightly more energy than I brought in. To compound this issue, I spent maybe a total of an hour dealing with the 2 traps to catch the 1 raccoon, which was worth twice as many calories as the fish. Rod fishing in fresh water does not feel to me like it is worthwhile from a food production standpoint, although I'm sure there are people out there with far more experience than me who could bring in fish easily every day. Many forms of unattended lines left in the water, which would make for a more passive and worthwhile food production approach, are not legal in most states, and are completely illegal in some states. This is for good reason, mostly around protecting the resilience of the resources, but it impacts the goals of this project and is worth noting. Even still, ice fishing has been my favorite version of fishing. You can go anywhere on the water without a boat, you get to pull fish through what feels like a magical portal to another realm, and it helps to fill a time during the year where it can feel like there isn't too much else to do outside. The calories added to the sheet in the last 2 weeks barely make a dent in where my rolling goal says I should be, 1/12 of the way through the year. However, this is expected. January has always been the slowest month for me, especially without having really dove into trapping yet. February will see large additions, and hopefully we can catch up.